Whether classic or contemporary, the mere mention of many literary characters brings forth strong images of their physical or emotional appearances. But how do we create and write about characters that make a lasting impression? Let's find out. Hi, I'm Emma with Servicescape, and welcome back to Write On. Today we're going to be talking about how to write physical descriptions of your characters in a unique and memorable way while avoiding cliches. Regardless of your character's role in the story you're crafting, you should strive to make them relatable or compelling at the very least. This is not to say that your readers necessarily have to agree with or relate to the motives of your vengeful wizard character, but rather that you should create enough interest in said wizard to make your readers curious about him. One technique you can follow throughout the process of character writing is the show, don't tell rule. This technique encourages writers to connect their story and characters by writing about their sensory details and their personal actions, rather than through lengthy exposition. Essentially, you want to explain the world through your character's experience and what they know, rather than through what you, as the author, know. This being said, it's important to be mindful of the narrator's point of view. If you're using a first-person narrator, put yourself in their shoes and describe the other characters in the story as they would see them. Imagine your character is a fashion designer. They take note when another character is carrying a designer bag. They probably also take note when someone is carrying a cheap imitation. Do they pass judgment? Do they keep it to themselves? On the flip side, imagine a character who has no interest in fashion whatsoever, who carries the cheap imitation simply because they like it. Their reaction would be quite different, maybe indifferent in this case. Just make sure that the physical descriptions you reveal are things that your character knows. Unless they're an omniscient narrator, they shouldn't magically know about something another character has from the first time they see it, or know specifically what a character is thinking when their expression changes. All of the physical descriptions they give should be based off of their own reactions or assumptions. For instance, your character wouldn't know what the other character had for breakfast just by looking at them unless they A, had breakfast with them, or B, the breakfast is very clearly still all over the other person's face. But case in point, even that sort of observation can reveal something about your characters. Maybe the character covered in crumbs is in a rush and didn't think to check their face before they left the house, revealing that maybe they have somewhere to be. Your character's assessment of this fact can reveal what they think of this character or of people in general, especially if it's a particularly negative one. The show, don't tell technique works hand in hand with character writing, as physical descriptions can often fall victim to another form of writing referred to in literary criticism as purple prose. Purple prose is overly flowery, ornate writing. It distracts the reader by breaking the flow of the story. Symptoms of purple prose consist of too many adjectives, adverbs, metaphors, and a general misuse of figurative language. Don't get me wrong, elaborate writing can be beautiful if done well, but when an author stops progressing the story to spend 2 pages describing the gaze of their characters' crystalline chameleon orbs or glowing alabaster skin so achingly pale in the incandescent glow of the milky moonlight, I start glazing over just a little bit. It may be worth it in this case to treat your character's descriptions as a means to advance the story. Think about the details of a character's appearance, from the clothes that they wear to how they carry themselves or speak. All of these things have the capability to unveil a piece of their background or daily life. You can tell the story of a hard worker through the appearance of their roughened hands, or a reckless ne'er-do-well by their multitudes of untreated wounds. You can tell the story of a timid character from their slumped posture and mumbled words, or a brave one through their strong stance and booming voice. Prominent worry lines, frustrated furrowed brows, or gentle smiles can reveal a lot about a character's personality. It's just up to you to bring light to them. Take this description of Gatsby from The Great Gatsby. In it, the narrator, Nick, describes Gatsby's smile, saying, "He had one of those rare smiles with a quality of eternal reassurance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced, or seemed to face, the whole external world for an instant and then concentrated on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. It understood you as far as you wanted to be understood, believed in you as you would like to believe in yourself." Now, I would put a spoiler alert before this part, but this book is almost 100 years old, so if you haven't read it yet, that's your business. This description not only gives readers a visual to tie to Gatsby's personality, but hints toward the fact that the way he presents himself is a facade. His smile and charisma are captivating, but overall performative. And this is how he presents himself, and subsequently how the outside world perceives him. And as the story progresses, that facade slowly breaks down, eventually ending in the character's demise. And though we can't always quite judge our assumptions or observations as truth about real people's lives, these attributes come from real people and our observation of them over time, and therefore become symbols in our literature. That being said, it's here that taking inspiration from people in your life that you admire can be a great aid in building your characters. Think back to when you first met one of your best friends or significant others, and ask yourself what exactly made you want to befriend them. More often than not, it's something about the way they presented themselves to you. It could be the way they expressed their beliefs or their feelings. Maybe it's their personality, their mannerisms, or how they carry themselves. Physical expressions like these are what draw us to other people, and the same sort of thing applies to fictional people. This being said, another thing to be aware of when you're writing a character description is the use of inclusive language. Using physical descriptions that perpetuate harmful stereotypes or unintentional racial bias within your story is something you may want to avoid, and it's generally respectful of other people. There are many resources online for writing about different races and cultures, and one of the most comprehensive and accessible ones I've seen so far is a blog called Writing with Color. I'll leave a link in the description below if you're interested. Now that we have the basics laid out, let's move on to an exercise that may be useful to you while writing your character's description. Imagine your character walks into a room full of people. What distinct features do they notice about them? It could be something fantastical like horns or wings, or something more subtle like a particular shape of nose or jaw. Maybe their hair is a specific color, or they wear a unique style of clothing. Emphasizing simple descriptions of distinct features will help readers differentiate between your characters and can also convey details about your character's personality. It's here where you can also emphasize your character's purpose within the larger narrative of your story and whether or not you want your reader to be aware of that purpose. For instance, if your character is meant to be the comic relief or a trickster, you could introduce them midway through some sort of prank. If they're meant to be more of an ordinary character, you could introduce them through part of their routine. Any activity, action, or interaction that will display their subsequent reaction will work in this case. What you don't want to do, however, is list every single physical detail that you can possibly think of. Remember to be wary of the purple prose we talked about before. Your description should be natural, and if you find yourself describing your character in the same way you would describe a suspect to a police sketch artist, you may want to take a step back. It's important to remember that readers are more than capable of filling in the gaps themselves, and if you put care into being selective of the information you provide them, it may work in your favor. Overall, you want to choose details that will advance your story further, rather than focus on ones that are less important. Character description can be a pivotal part of any type of story, and figuring out the difference between detailed and relevant information versus overworked miles of descriptive text is half of the battle. And while you gaze into the sunset, your crystalline chameleon orbs sparkling with the everlasting hope of your strong-willed spirit, remember that with practice and maybe a few well-selected adjectives, your character may one day be remembered as a classic too. Thanks for watching. If you like this episode of Write On, consider giving us a like and subscribing to our channel. We've got new content coming soon, and I can't wait to share it with you. Also, feel free to follow our Twitter page. We post new content every day and would love to have you be a part of the community there as well. See you next time.